So on that third voyage, you came around the Horn against the wind, and got around it into the Pacific.
Into the Pacific.
Did you have
no problem?
No problem.
No problem at all. Going sailing all the way up there. Oh, what I mean, the problem you had the ordinary gales that you'll have, especially far south. After you get around the Horn, then you can still have a lot of bad weather because you get the same westerly winds, and you have to keep away from the coast. You've got to get far enough away from the coast that you beat up north, not to get involved. And you have to stay with it until these winds die, and you pick up the trade winds, and then go north again. So.
Mm-hmm.
Now we had no trouble at all, as I remember, getting up the coast up to Vancouver till we got near Vancouver. Got up off the coast of the United States there. And then we ran into bed because there we're in the middle of winter.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the problem of getting around Cape Flattery, off Cape Flattery, which is another very dangerous spot for sailing ships, to make. But we did that pretty good there.
Mm-hmm. You had storms?
We had lots of storms. Yeah.
Okay,
In fact, I think the biggest sea that I ever encountered was off of Flattery. One it hit the ship. It came aboard.
Where were you when it came up?
Well, I was on deck. We were all on deck. We were doing, I don't know why we didn't lose men that time, I don't know.
And
It was
could
the most
you see
enormous sea that we had more. I never saw it fill up with water like that one did.
Could you see it
The
coming?
old Hafter.
Could you see it coming? Or?
Oh yeah, you could see it coming, boy.
And
row, everybody grabbed, everybody grabbed. We're all on deck working, taking in sail or doing something.
Uh-huh.
We all grabbed and got behind what we thought would be safe, but no one got lost.
And it came right over
Right
the
over the
side.
top of you, right over the top of you,
Gotcha.
right, rolling over hundreds of tons of water, Smashed the lifeboats and unsettled the half deck. The half deck raised off the deck about 6 inches. It's the one that didn't take the whole thing with it.
Huh. Ah, that's amazing.
Yeah, could
And,
have just as easily have done it.
What was it? So you were holding underwater?
Yeah, I was behind a mast or something. I don't know where I was, but I was holding on. I was holding on, boy.
Yeah.
And I remember after it was all over, just after it passed, the old man who looked down, because he's up on the poop a little higher, and he shouted at me, "Anybody lost Mr. Griffith or Mr. Jones?" I think it was Mr. Jones. I remember asking, he expected that he'd lose half of his crew. That was off Flattery.
Huh.
Another time, so I'll give you an idea, you're talking about, I was on a schooner, a big American schooner. And we were going down from Seattle to Aberdeen, which is only 45 miles outside of Flattery.
Mm-hmm.
Down south, Flattery. Flattery is the cape at the entrance to Puget Sound.
Right.
Which separates Vancouver Island from the mainland United States. See?
Mm-hmm.
And we were only 45 miles from there down to Grace Island. It took us 10 days to make it.
Wow, how large a sloop was it?
10 days.
My gosh.
Yeah, we sailed out through there. We got out into the Pacific, but we got headwinds getting down to get to Grace Harbor, and we had to go out to sea. We went out to sea, and we never saw land for 10 days, and we finally made it.
No, and the seas were.
And then we did the same thing after we left Grace Harbor. We had to go down to Astoria, on the Columbia River. That was about another 40 odd miles. We had the same experience. See, because you had to get in there with the headwind facing you all the time,
Mm-hmm.
And to beat it into the port, into Astoria, up the Columbia, get over the Columbia bar, and we had a pilot aboard. He was supposed to take us down, and it was New Year's and Christmas.
Oh.
He came aboard just with a little suitcase, you know. He was taking us from Seattle to Grace Harbor. He didn't get home for 2 weeks. Yeah. What a mess that was.
Yeah, what size boat was that?
Oh, it was another big four-masted American-built schooner. It was built during the war, you know, and this was its maiden voyage.
Oh, really?
And it was the most god-awful mess I ever saw, was this thing. We got out to sea, you know, and everything was new. You know, and the Americans hadn't built a schooner. I don't think they'd built one in I don't know how many years, you know. It was a war baby, a war product. Just like they built the concrete ships, you know, anything to get a bottom to take, because the Germans were sinking all the ships in the Atlantic, you know. And once you got out in bad weather, everything she had on her swelled up, you know, and you couldn't pull on anything. The ropes jammed in the sheaves, you know, the blocks swore. You couldn't hoist the sails, you couldn't get them down. Oh, what a mess it was then. They allowed nothing for that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Yeah, oh, that's amazing.
And we had to cut them down and re-reeve them, you know. Luckily we had a lot of gear aboard them because they belonged to I think they belonged to the shipping board, you know. But they had a lot of gear, but everything had to be taken down, and the blocks and tackles all, I don't know how we did it, you know, it's all very faint remember, but I remember we had a hell of a time. We couldn't take in sail, because we couldn't pull on anything, all the ropes jammed, we couldn't swing the yard, you know, anything. It was terrible.
Oh, that's amazing. Terrible. And you had bad weather that trip?
Huh?
You had bad weather?
Well, that was the bad weather. It was the bad weather. That's when it took us the 10 days to make 40 miles. Because you're talking about getting around the Horn. It's the same idea. If you're beaten against a headwind, you as a sailor you should know that there's a certain amount of thing, and especially if you're in bad weather, you know, and when you, especially when you're heaving, you know, when you're going about tacking ship. You've got to do it fast because you'll drift more in the period that you're swinging around than you can get. So you go behind, you lose mileage.
Yeah.
Got to be done fast. Right. And Gale went like that. See.
And
that's why it took them sometimes 30 days to do it. To get sort of half favorable weather.
And what's it like swinging a yard across when you tack?
What do you mean? What's it like?
When you're tacking, how hard is it to swing the yards?
Oh, they're not too hard to swing. No, they're not too hard to swing.
They're not.
No, because the ship, you put the ship's head down, and as the sails go with you, you know, and they spill the sails and take the weight out of them, you know, so that I can't describe the technique so easily. In fact, I think I'd have to take a refresher course if I went back aboard the ship. See? But you spill the wind on them, you know, so the wind, they're not taking all the weight of the wind in the sails, you know, as you go around, see. So sometimes they'll go by themselves also. If the wind catches them in the right direction, they'll swing around very fast.
Yeah. You know, on this last trip, you were taking the ship to Vancouver?
Yeah.
And you had rough weather around Flattery Point.
Yeah, half of Flattery Point, yeah.
And then you had clear sailing.
Yeah, we sailed right up Puget Sound, up to Victoria, Esquimalt there, and we anchored right off before we got a pilot or anything. We sailed right up the Sound. They woke up in the morning and people had a sailing ship in the backyard. Then we got a tugboat from there into Vancouver.
And was the ship left there, or did you pick up the cargo?
I left it there. I had enough of it. I was there. I called it a day.
And so how did you decide to?
I don't know. Everybody decided to. It was a long voyage, 153 days.
Yeah.
It was a hungry ship. We had a terrible cook aboard. this time he was a jailbird who'd been spent most of his time in jail, and he'd been shipped by as a cook, and he didn't know, because it was very hard to get crews for those ships in those days, you know. For a sailing ship, who the hell want to go on a sailing ship, especially around the Horn, you know, making a trip around the Horn. So we didn't have many professional sailors even aboard. We had a lot of young people that wanted to get out of Scotland and get to Canada, an easy way, as they thought, to get to Canada, you know. And the grub was terrible, you know, the grub was terrible. And the voyage was long.
This was the same ship you'd been on?
Yeah, this is the one I was on all the time,
all
for
the
3
voyages.
years, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
But she, as I say, everybody was tired of her. The whole crew deserted her. And here we had got to Canada. You know, Canada was very inviting at that time, you know. Especially the west coast, British Columbia, was in the midst of a boom. You know, it was a virgin country opening up, very beautiful country, and there was great demand for labour. They were building the Grand Trunk Railroad, and there were big construction projects going on all over British Columbia. Anyone could get a job at what was considered good wages, you know. After £2 of, I think a seaman on that voyage was getting $15 a month. So he could go ashore, and any job he got, he could get about $4 or $5 a day, you know, something like that, you know. And this is what they were looking for. The seamen, most of these seamen, except the professionals, had joined the ship just to get to Canada.
And was the ship planning on picking up a cargo in Canada?
Oh yes,
she sailing back.
She
so
just sure. That's sure. She was still in. It was an unusual trip, you know, for a sailing ship. There was many sailing ships went up to Canada from Glasgow or from Europe, but there was a big building boom on, you know. And she had what they call a Glasgow General Cargo, which was made up of mostly all of building material, you know, like bricks, iron pipes, sewer pipes, all that kind of a thing, you know, for this. And it was cheaper it was still profitable to send them by sailing ship than send them across the Atlantic and by railroad, you know what I mean? See? Even an old sailing ship couldn't turn a bit of a profit for the owner of it, you know.
So what did you do when you left the ship?
So we left, as I say, we discharged the cargo there, and everybody, I was the only apprentice who left. I think. Oh no, there was another one. There was 2 of us left. We had 5 apprentices. All that was left to go back with the ship, you know, of the original crew, was the 3 apprentices and the officers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The 3 apprentices, no. Well, she got another crew, you know, she picked up a crew. You always get a crew somewhere. Or maybe the same type of a crew of young Canadians who wanted to see the world, you know, something like that. But they got a crew, evidently, because she left there, and she loaded with lumber, shipped back with lumber to South America. Well, she no doubt picked up saltpeter and back home again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now, when you left ship, did you think this would be the end of your sailing?
Yeah,
sailing career?
yeah. No, I had no plans. See, I was footloose.
Did you?
I had no plans. I was footloose, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'd do whatever the wind blew in front of me.
And you were about 20 now.
Yeah, but by then I was about 18, 17 or 18. Yeah, about that.
What did you end
Well, the
up doing?
first job I had was funny, very cute. You see, how did I get out of there? I don't know what I should tell this story. It's a little, well, it's all right, let's tell it. There used to, when we come into Canada, you see, sailing ships were unusual. There wasn't too many of them, you know. I came up there. And of course, people came down to the docks, you know, to look at you, look at the ship, you know, and all that sort of a thing. Every Sunday or Saturday, you always had a whole raft of visitors, you know. And there was one, by this time, in a couple of weeks, we weren't in 2 or 3 days till all the crew had gone, you know, they just moved out. And there was a man came aboard. He was an old man, what I thought was an old man. He probably wasn't more than 50. And he got acquainted with me, and he got acquainted with the boys, you know. They'd come and talk, you know. So he suggests, I don't know what what I told him. I don't know. I told him I was thinking of leaving the ship. Well, he says, I'll get you a job if you want to leave. You know, let's paraphrase what probably was said, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll get you a job. So it seemed that he had a job. He was working in a college nearby in Westminster. There's a town near Vancouver, Westminster College there. And he had some kind of a job, and that he could get me a job there. I think one of the men that worked there in the college, I don't know what he did. I don't know to this day what he did. So he says, I'll get your job, he says. So this was all right for me, you know. I said, all right, good. And it was away from Vancouver itself. It was about 20 miles or 12 miles outside of Vancouver, because I didn't want to hang around Vancouver, because there was a $50 reward for returning me to the ship. Not the seamen, but the apprentices, you know. This was a black mark to lose an apprentice, you know.
Mm.
So there was a $50 reward for us. So I went with them that night. It was a night time. Well, of course, we had to get off at night time, so I got off at night time.
How'd you get off? Was the ship at dock?
No, yeah, well, the ship was docked. I had to leave her, you know, at night time. I couldn't do it in the daytime, you know. So I had packed my bag and then left everything behind my chest and everything, you know. And we got on the train. It was a interurban electric between the two towns.
Did you have any trouble getting off the ship? Or?
No, no trouble. No, the boys knew I was going. You know, the apprentices knew I was going. No one tried to interfere. No one squealed. You get what I mean? No one told the captain that Jack is going to leave the ship. So I got with them, and I went to Vancouver. I went to this Westminster, and when we went to a room, he had a room there. There was two of them sleeping in this room. There was another young man, probably I would suggest about 25, you know, I don't know. He had one bed. This other man had another bed, his bed. See, this was the room. And understand, I think it was that this other young man was quitting, and I was going to take his place. So he says, well, the old man says, you can sleep with me, you know. So all right, sleep with me, I'll sleep with you. It didn't mean anything else. But during the night, he started to fuck around with me, you know.
Oh.
He was a pederast.
Oh, no.
Yeah. See?
Yeah. So what could you do?
Well, what did I do? I gave him a kick in the guts, you know. We'd known about these people, you know, because seamen are all talking about boy humpers and, you know, there's homosexual. They didn't never use the word homosexual, but they knew that there was boy humpers, you know, that seamen are supposed to like boys and that sort of thing. So he was a pederast. So I gave him such a kick in the guts, you know. So he didn't bother me anymore, you know. I fell asleep. Didn't scare me, you know. I was a very brazen. By this time I was pretty sophisticated. I'd been given a good sex education in the forecastle, you know. So I wasn't afraid of anybody, you know. So the only thing I was afraid of was getting back in the ship, you know. I might have to go back. So I'm in a bad way. So when I got up in the morning, you know, in the morning, I told him, I says, well, I'm going back to Vancouver. So the young man that was in the other young man I told you about, he says, what's the matter, kid? I says, well, I told him, this guy has been fooling around with me last night, and I don't stand for that kind of a business. He is, how's he on? He was very indignant, this young man, you know, come on, he says, I'll go to the president, I guess the college man, and we'll tell him. I said, Jesus, don't do that. That's the last thing I want to hear. You go tell him, I says. I just jumped ship. I says, I'll be back in I'll be back in jail. I says, don't do that. Well, I said, all right, kid, I want to do it. I says, but I'll tell you what you can do. You can give me 50 cents to pay my fare back to Vancouver. So he gave me 50 cents, and I packed my bag and away I went. So I had met also another friend, party there, a man from Glasgow, who was a countryman of mine, and he had come down also to visit the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And he had invited me like I invite you to come and visit, and I was a Scotch boy and he was a Scotch man, all very nostalgic, and the ship had came from the same town that he had been born in, and there was a lot of people on that ship that he knew or knew the parents or something. He was an older man,
Mm-hmm.
and so he invited me out. To his wife. He had a nice little house, and he had a little daughter about 8 or 9 years old, and I used to go visit her. So when I came back in the morning with my bag on my shoulder, and I went to him, only place I knew to go to. So I told him what had happened. So he, of course, was very indignant too. But he put me up. He says, Johnny, you'll stay with me,
Mm-hmm.
So So I met some of the other seamen who had run away, And when they heard the story, they were very indignant. So they were on the prowl to get hold of this guy and were going to beat him up.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you know how they had to do towards homosexuals,
Yeah.
So they were going to grab him and give him a beating. I said, oh, forget about it. I don't want any problems. He's forgotten. Didn't do me any harm. It taught me a lesson, that's all. But didn't do me any harm.
Yeah.
So they forgot about him. So near where I lived, we were only about 2 blocks from the docks, from the waterfront. And there was a great big lumber mill there, So I got a job in this lumber mill. I went down there and got a job because I needed a job. I had no money. I had only $1 when I left the ship. And I had to go to work. And Mr. Dick, he was only a worker himself. He couldn't keep me forever, So I went down there and I got a job. I think I paid 50 cents an hour, which is a lot of money, guy. And I was only there a couple of weeks, and they had a dock because all these big lumber mills are on the waterfront, because they tow down the logs from up north, and haul them up to the lumber mill.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a dock there. And one day, coming to the dock, a beautiful yacht, like a little steamer, with a funnel, 2 masts, a wheelhouse, and it was about a 65-footer.
Mm-hmm.
It had formerly been a Columbia Coast Missions boat, where they had a parson on it, who used to travel up the coast, to Alaska, up the Inland Passage, and stop at the logging camps. I don't know, he gave me the job. He had no more attention during the manual, but I was a very loquacious little boy, you know what I mean? I had a great gift of the gab,
Uh-huh.
And I was likable, I'm not saying this in all modesty, so I'm not very modest. But see, so I made an impression, just like I'd made on the ship owner who gave me the job and the apprentice in the first place, So he took me along with him on this hunting trip.
Uh-huh.
So away we go. We sails up the coast, It was about April. We started out. We went, and we lived off the land. We shot deer and they shot bear and they fished salmon. All that kind of a thing. Oh, it's terrific. My eyes goggling everywhere I went. So.
Then all that was completely barren.
Huh?
That was all wild
that
land.
was wild land. We went places there that probably, I don't know, they'd all been chartered, I don't know. But you wouldn't see a man in 1,000 miles, that kind of thing. All barren country, beautiful, beautiful country. We went up all these inlets, of which there are thousands of them, all up the British Columbia coast, all the way right up to Alaska, to Skagway. And, but finally, we'd been gone about 2 months. And finally, I got fired. He didn't fire me for, what happened was that two of the wives of the owner had come out from England. And they had to find room for them on board this boat, So I had one of the bunks that was given over to one of the gentlemen. And he gave us his to one of the women, so I had to make room for them. So he paid me off way up the coast somewhere, just near Prince Rupert. And he paid my fare back, he gave me my fare back again. And left me there, for there was the very boat that brought his wife. There was a little coastal steamer used to go up, make a week trip going up and a week trip coming back, And she had dropped this girl off here, the two girls, and I was supposed to take the boat. So I got on this boat, this little steamer, which later was lost with about 100 people drowned on her. But anyway, when I got aboard her, and I went to get my fare, pay my fare, I discovered that she wasn't going back to Vancouver, She wasn't going back to Vancouver. She was going north.
Oh no.
See? And then making the trip back again, see? So I spoke to the purser. And the purser turned out to be a Scotsman too, not a Canadian Scotch. Terrific lot of Canadian Scotch, especially in British Columbia. And again, he fell in love with her, and I don't mean sexual love, but here was a wee laddie, from Scotland, with a lovely Scotch accent, which brought out all the chauvinism, not exactly chauvinism, but the nostalgia in him, So he says, "Don't you mind, laddie, we'll fix you." I told him part of the story. I said, I thought I was going back to, I told him what had happened, the whole story. I thought I was going back to Vancouver. "Oh no, laddie, you're going up to, where was it, Stewart, way up in the borders of Alaska and British Columbia, as far as you can go." He says, "We're going up there and then we'll come down. But I'll fix you up, laddie. Don't worry, you'll be all right. You'll be all right." He says, and the boat was crowded. Oh, it was overloaded with people, men, all men, only one or two women. So I asked them, what's going on here, all these men? And they were right out of Jack London, or Rags Beach, Big husky brutes, with Mackinaw coats and high shoes and big caps. I don't know if you ever saw a Rex Beach picture or a Jack London picture, Call of the Wild, that kind of thing. Oh, and what were they? There was a gold rush on.
Oh, really?
He says, where are all these men going? He says, don't you know? I says, no, what's going on? Well, he says, they've discovered gold up in Stewart and they're going there. You're in the midst of a gold rush. This to me was terrific, terrific, this is terrific. I'm in amongst all this little puny little boy as I was, because I looked much younger than I was. While I was 18 or 17, I looked about 13, so fresh, that kind of a thing. And everybody, there was also said, but I forget what his name. So it seems that they were going up to Stewart, but Walter, I only remember his name, the person's name was Walter. Walter says, "Don't worry, Jack," he says, I'll fix you up, don't worry, I'll fix you up." So the first thing you know, he introduced me to the owners of Stewart. who were Scotsmen too, you know, also Canadian Scots. Now, they were the discoverers of. I see it's on the map now. The town is on the map. It has an airplane post and everything. So he says, "Well, I'll speak to Mr. Stewart. You know, they'll fix you up." So I got up to. I says, "All right, I'm not worrying. I'm in your hands." I didn't say it in that way, but I'll leave everything to Walter. So I started looking around. He got me a bunk. I don't know where they put me, but I know I slept all right that night. But I wandered down to the saloon, and here they were, again like Jacqueline. Everybody was playing cards, gambling, blackjack, you know. Oh, it was hectic. Smoke, you know, and all these big fellas all playing money children. I never saw so much money in all my life, you know. There's on these tables. And I'm looking under between them, you know, and I see how they're going. And one finally got up. And I'd been paid off with about $40 or $50, you know, something like that. So I thought, I can do as good as they can. So I got right in the game. Well, now I was broke.
Oh, oh no.
I'm broke.
Oh,
You know, it didn't last an hour. I didn't know what it was all about, you know. It was blackjack. It looked simple, you know, but I didn't know how to size up things, but I was broke. Well, the next morning he introduced me to another man, also a Scotch-Canadian, who owned a cannery up in Nass River. So he gave me a job. He made a job for me.
In the cannery?
In the cannery. So I spent the rest of the year, the rest of the summer and the fall on this salmon cannery with him, you know. That's how I got by. Till I got back to Vancouver, and then I started looking around for work, you know. Got a job here and a job there and a job. Never stayed more than 3 months on any job. Because I was restless. I couldn't take anything from one. Because all what you call menial jobs, is that the word now? Menial jobs, or jobs that there were no interest in them for me, you know. So I got tired of them very easily.
Did you think of going back to sea?
No, I didn't think of going back to sea. So finally, I didn't go back to sea for about a year or so. Till finally, a young friend of ours, we were both out of jobs. A young man that I'd met, he was younger than I was, and I says to him one day, John Neal he was a Highland boy, a little Highland boy who could talk Gaelic. Came from the north of Scotland, you know, in the Hebrides Islands, you know, where Harris Tweed comes from. So I says, John, he says, let's go to Australia. I said, what do you want to go to Australia? I said, it'd be nice to go to Australia. So we went down the docks. There was a big Australian liner in, you know, the regular one that runs between Sydney and Vancouver. Went by and asked, found the mate and asked him if he needed anybody. He says, no, I says, we don't need anybody, but maybe the steward needs somebody, you know. So I'd never been a steward, you know, in the steward's department. So we saw the steward, the chief steward, and he gave us a job. So we went to Australia.
And this was on
This was on a steamer, you know, on a big passenger boat, passenger boat. So I spent a couple of years in Australia then. I sailed in Australia on a boat. I also got a job.
Sailing there?
Sailing, not in sail, and steam, you know, on the coast, you know, running up and down between Sydney and Brisbane and there, you know, up and down the coast there. Spent some time on that. So there you are.
That's great. And then how about after that? Did you, when was it you sailed on the Moshulu?
I sailed on the Moshulu at the end of the First World War.
Yeah.
Not in the Moshulu. I didn't sail on the Moshulu. I worked on the Moshulu, but I didn't sail on it. I sailed on a sister ship of the Moshulu.
Oh, I see. So, and how did you get from Australia back?
Well, I came back by another ship.
Another steamship?
Yeah, another big steamship. Which was lost during the war. It was sunken.
What was it like working on the early steamships?
All right, the same.
Easier than the
it was the same 4 on and 4 off. Yeah, it's still the same.
But
But
not the same.
Oh no.
Work.
You're better conditions, better ship. You know, as a steamer, and better, especially on the passenger boat.
Yeah.
Good food. You know, no. There was no allotment of food, which a sailing ship was allotment of food. You're only entitled to so much food on a sailing ship.
And so you came back, and you came back on the steamer from Australia.
I come back on a steamer from
was
Australia.
Was that near the beginning of the war?
As near the beginning of the war of the
First World War.
1914.
Right.
Yeah, not when America got there. I wasn't in America. Beginning of the war.
And
then I got this job on. You know, I sailed a little and I worked a little. I never stayed long on any of the. I didn't particularly like going to sea. You know, I would only be on a ship a short time and then I'd quit and go somewhere else. You know, getting restless and whatnot. But the last ship I was on last sailing ship I was on was this sister ship to the Moshulu.
What's the history of these?
Well, the history of the Moshulu, and as I know it, up to that period, I don't know what happened to her, but my recollection was that there were 3 German ships were interned during the war down in Chile. Yeah? And they made a dash out of there, see, because the British were preoccupied with the Atlantic. You know, the ships were being sunk, and they had no navy in the Pacific at all. The only ship that caused them any trouble in the Pacific was the Emden. Did you ever hear of the Emden? Well, the Emden was it was a German cruiser that had got into the Pacific during the war and was camouflaged as a freighter and sunk a lot of ships in the Pacific. See? And that was the only thing that the British Navy had to worry over, or the Americans once they came in. You know, they look that up, will you? Look that up yourself sometime when you get it. The Emden, and the captain of it was a man called Count von Lucknow, who became a big hero because of this exploit of getting into the Pacific and doing a lot of damage by himself, all by himself with this one ship. He used to, and he never sank. As far as I remember, he didn't take any lives or anything, but he'd take the crew off the ship and sink them, sink the ship, and then dump the crew somewhere else. Now this is to the best of my recollection. You'd have to read the exploit. There's been 2 or 3 books read. He became a big hero in America, and they made a big hero out of him. One of the authentic heroes of First World War. Now she was the only ship that was in the enemy there. But I was talking about these other sailing ships. They finally made a dash out of Chile, and they landed in San Francisco. That's how I got the story. I mean, this is how I remember it, and I'm sure it's right. And meanwhile, the United States got into the war, and these ships were interned over in Oakland, up the estuary there somewhere, and the United States government commandeered them, and re-rigged them, and sent them out to sea again. They raised crews for them and sent them out to sea again. And as far as I know, the
United States came into the war just after they came into San Francisco.
Yeah, shortly while they were in San Francisco. I don't know how long they laid in San Francisco. I never knew. They might have been there for years or so. because it was a long time from 1914 to 1917. There was
Right.
3 years of delay. How long they'd been there, I don't know. But they evidently had been there when America came into the war.
Mm.
And they would have probably have stayed there. But there was such a terrific demand for shipping that anything that could sail was commandeered, or was brought into play. Just like they built the concrete ships, to take
Right.
this, eh?
Well,
And, sir?
when did you first get involved with these 3 ships?
Well, I got involved in San Francisco. I'd come down from Canada, as a seaman,
Uh-huh.
And these 3 ships were they were there. They were being fitted out to make this trip. And I met a young man who said he joined. I hadn't seen this young man, but I'd been shipmates with him at some time or other. And I asked him, he told me that he had shipped up on one of them, So he says, why don't you come? So I thought, gee, it'd be nice to get back in a sailing ship again.
Were you anxious by then?
Oh yeah,
to sail
I
again?
was glad to have the opportunity to go on a sailing ship,
Uh-huh.
And so I went down and I got the job, I shipped up. And it just
did
so
you have to-
happened
Yeah.
that I was the only man on the ship that had ever been in a sailing ship before, except the officers. I was the only member of the crew that had ever been on a sailing ship before.
That's something.
All the others were young men, young boys, not men, boys, I call them boys, everybody's a boy nowadays. But they were young men who were, it was preferable to join a ship like this than go to war,
Mm. So you didn't have to join the Navy?
No,
to join the ship?
no. In the First World War, as I understand it, the American seamen on American ships were exempt from war by law.
Mhm.
It wasn't
I
a
see.
privilege.
Uh-huh.
It was incorporated into the Act.
Mhm.
They were exempt.
So,
Not in the Second World War. You had to get a deferment in the Second World War. But I understand that in the First World War, they were exempt. See? So anyone that could get a job on a ship was ipso facto exempt from fighting. See?
Mhm.
So these were all young men and they couldn't get anybody else to take it but young men, because who the hell wanted to go on a sailing ship? How many sailing ship men were there around? There wasn't enough around,
so you were signed on as a regular?
So I signed on, and they made me bosun right away. The man, of course, the captain made me a bosun, the bosun of the ship.
And there's just one bosun?
Yes,
Or-
no, there was 2 bosuns, one for each watch. The other guy had been to sea before. He was a bit of a half-wit of some kind. I don't know what he was, but he had been to sea. He was a Norwegian or a Swede or something. So I sailed on her, and
What was this trip like with all new men?
Oh, terrific! It was fun.
never
It was
sailed
a
before.
real fun trip. Real fun trip.
You had a full crew?
A full crew. We didn't. We had. Oh, I don't know how. I forget how many. I'll show you down how many men we had on her. But it's a fair weather trip,
Uh-huh.
The only thing you can run into is a typhoon or something like that, which we did, of course, when we got
No.
to smashed it.
What was the typhoon like?
The minute we left San Francisco, you see, while we were in port, I drilled some of these kids. I tried to show them what rope was this, and what this was, what that was for,
Mhm.
And we took on sail and we put it on. We were trying to catch up and teach them a little of the rudiments. I didn't know too much myself, but I knew a little more than they did. So.
Yeah.
So luckily, when we left San Francisco, we got beautiful weather and beautiful northeast trades, winds, and we sailed right merrily along down to the Hawaiian Islands. We even saw the Hawaiian Islands. We're there in no time, I think about 9 days or something like that. Takes a steamer 5 days. So we were there in no time. In the meantime, these boys were getting a little education, getting a little bit of a training. why we used to take in sail, even if they didn't have to be taken. And we were taking them and taking in the royals and, and sending them up and showing them how to do this and do that. And bending sail, we were breaking them in.
And bosun's in charge of
Yeah, the
disciplining.
bosun's in charge of the discipline. The carrying out of the officers, he's the sergeant, the sergeant major, breaking in the seamen.
Uh-huh.
Carries out the orders of the crew, of the officers, sees it executed,
Did you have any trouble in that position?
No, no trouble, no trouble. No trouble. So I got along very well with the boys. I was only a boy myself, they were just the same. But we had fun, it was good fun. And we were well fed, the ships was loaded down with modern food, canned peaches and canned this and canned that, with a very fine cook and an assistant cook who was formerly been a passenger cook.
Huh. What did you used to eat on the old sailing ships?
Well, in the old sailing ship we ate damn little. What did we eat? We ate mostly. In the old sailing ships everything was measured out.
Uh-huh.
You got so much of this and so much of that. But I should have said we just got so little of this and so little of that, not so much of it, but so little of this and so little of that. Oh, I forget the exact details, but maybe a half a pound of sugar a week, half a pound of butter a week, a pound of flour a week. It was all measured out for you, see. And you were given your own sugar, and you were given your own butter, and you were given your own jam, if there was any jam, as far as I remember. And the cook was given the flour and whatever went into the cooking, And you got a half a pound of salt horse. There was no canned food, which would be
Salt
horse, yeah, salt out the great big casks,
No, it was horse meat.
No, it wasn't horse. We called it horse.
Oh, I see. It was pork.
No, it was pork or beef, pickled meat, pickled. See, and brine, tough as hell. Oh God, tough. So this was measured out for you. Once a week you went aft and the steward would measure out everybody's whack, and you didn't get any more or no less.
No.
And I think you only got 3 quarts of water a day, as far not more than a gallon of water, which had to go for your cooking, your washing, your drinking, your tea, your coffee. Mostly tea. Don't remember coffee. See?
Yeah, that does sound pretty.
If you would look up the requirements, why they fed you much less than they fed you in jail.
Oh really?
And this was by law, and it was an improvement of what had gone before, because they had to pass this law to assure that the crews would get at least a medium of food. So, now there was nothing of this in this later cell. There was plenty of everything for everybody. So it was, and good cooks to cook it, and good baker. The baker the cook was a good baker. So you had good bread and cake. It was wonderful, and it was good weather most of the time.
So the stately ship was sailing along under all her sails.
Yeah, pleasure. Nothing nicer than that.
Yeah.
We did get in a blow. Got dismasted.
Really? This?
Yeah, on this trip we got dismasted.
This is a 4-masted ship?
Yeah, it was a 3-masted ship.
3-masted.
Full-rigged ship. And we did get a blow.
Can you describe
the
whole storm?
We picked up a shipwreck crew who were in the same blow as we were.
Oh, what happened at the start of the blow? What area of the ocean were you in?
Well, we were somewhere down around Wake Island or somewhere around there, between Honolulu, between the Hawaii Islands and the Philippines. We were way south. We weren't north. We were in good weather all the time, but not far enough down to be in the real doldrums. See?
And
we did get winds. And one night we got a good blow that we didn't, where it came from I don't know at the time, but it was enough to dismast us.
Can you remember where you were during the blow?
No, I was below decks at the time. I
Uh-huh.
think it wasn't on my watch. It was nearly part of the evening. But luckily, we had a shipwreck crew with us, who were all good seamen.
Hmm.
Much better seamen than I were. Men who had spent 20 or 30 years at sea on sailing ships, you know.
Mhm.
How that happened, I don't know, but they were there. They were off an old schooner that had been laying up Auckland estuary on the beach for years and years. And when the man for shipping came along, they took her off the estuary and fixed her up and re-rigged her and sent her out to sea.
Hmm.
That's as far as she got. She got to the middle of the Pacific and got all dismasted during this gale that we were in. And the luckiest thing in the world, because
You picked her up during the
we
same
were the
gale?
only two sailing ships in the whole Pacific
Yeah.
at that time. At least, except the Monongahela and the Moshulu. Where they were, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But they weren't where we were.
And do you remember picking up the crew?
Oh yeah, wonderful. It was a wonderful stroke of luck. We had one of the young men up on the forecastle head. And in the evening, the blow was over by this time, you know.
Had you lost your masts by now?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
We didn't. We lost sails. Not in that. We got a blow later.
Right.
Off closer to the Philippines.
Mhm.
Probably the tail end of a typhoon or something, you know. And this fellow was on the lookout, and he reported a light, which no one else had seen but him. It was an 8 to 12 watch, about 9 o'clock at night. And he saw this big flash of light. And he reported it to the captain. We never saw it again. So we were a little worried. The old man was a little worried. Would that clear my throat? And the old man was a little worried. And he spoke to me. The old man had great confidence in me. Again, there's this charisma, you know. He had confidence in me. And he liked me a lot. I don't know why. He liked me because I was a sailing ship man, you know.
Mm.
And he liked me because I was young, you know. He took a sort of fatherly interest in me, you know. And he says, Scotty, he should have been a consultant with his mates, not with me. He says, Scotty, he says, that light, I don't know what to do about it. We only see it, no one else has seen it. It might have been just a hallucination on part of the boy. And he says, but besides, it says the Emden is in the Pacific. It might be a come-on, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So what would you do? I says, well, we have nothing to lose, so what? He says, why don't we just sail around and wait in the morning and see what happens, you know? If it was the Emden, he'd be here already, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If it was the Emden, he wouldn't wait. Tomorrow he'd come now and take you. He's steamer, he'll come and sink us, take us off, or whatever to do with us. I said, why don't you wait around, circle around? I said, all right, Scotty. So he did that. He circled around, and all night long we were circling around, and we never left the area.
Mm-hmm.
So sure enough, in the morning when it broke daylight, there she was. Someone reported that she was about 5 miles or so away, you know. So we got up close to her, and here there was the old schooner, waterlock. All the masts were gone, all the lifeboats were gone. Everything was gone from her. The only lucky thing was that she was loaded with lumber. And she had a deck cargo, you know, they used to put lumber on the deck too, you know, those ships that carry lumber.
Mm-hmm.
And there she was, waterlogged, you know, not sink. She would never sink, because she was all wood. She was a wooden schooner in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And she was loaded with lumber. But everything was gone. And on the poop was the crew. That was the only thing that was a little above water, you know. and there was 7 or 8 men on her, you know. So we put out the lifeboat and picked them up. There was a big sea running. We called for volunteers, you know, go ahead. There was no trouble getting volunteers, although everybody wanted to be a volunteer, you know. Some of those boys had never pulled a bloody oar in their life, you know. At least I don't think so. I hadn't done much of it myself, because seamen never get much chance to pull lifeboats, you know, but there they were, and we got them ashore. The first thing, the first man I hauled over I didn't go, because I was, the other bosun went, but I didn't go because we were wearing ship all the time, about ship, you know. So I stayed behind. I was glad to. I didn't like those big waves floating around either. So I was no romantic. So we got the first man I hauled over the board was an old shipmate.
Of yours?
Yeah,
that's good.
And the other man that I hauled aboard was an old friend of mine that I'd been a party member up in British Columbia. We both belonged to the same political group. Isn't that funny?
That is. What political group was it?
Yeah, well, a socialist political group in Canada, Socialist Party of Canada, which I had belonged to while I was up there. See?
That is funny. That's great.
Yeah, funny.
So these men...
But the boy was right, and what happened was that they had sighted us, because we had running lights, you know. And they saw us, but how are they going to let us know? Luckily, they had saved a lamp that had a little oil in it, you know, because they were in the poop. And the captain's quarters back, you know, and you know what the poop is, you know, on the back, rear of the ship, you know. And they had a lamp there that had a little coal oil in it. This guy took off his shirt and he soaked it with the coal oil. And someone happened to have a match, or they had a match, you know. So he set fire to his shirt. And this was the signal that that the boy had seen. Now, if his head been turned the other way, these people would never have been found.
Right. Because
we were way out of the shipping lane. You know, we were south. The shipping lane, which is where the steamers, is great circle sailing, you know, up way far north, you know, much further north than we were. So,
yeah.
So we got them.
So then, so you had them on board?
Yeah, we had. So when we did get this mast.
What was the storm like? Do you remember before you were dismasted?
This group was aboard, so they pitched in. You know, you couldn't compel them to work, but you didn't have to compel men who were seamen to, and they did most of the work.
What was it? Do you remember the storm building up?
Well, you don't. No, these things come up very quick sometimes. Yeah. They come up quicker than you can get your sail off.
I see, and you were down below deck when.
Yeah, but they come up quick, and you can't get your sail off quick enough. Okay. Start blowing like hell, and in 10 minutes it's inferno, you know, blowing. So they can't get the sail off fast enough. So I don't know why that went so, and it went very easy.
Which mast?
The main mast.
Main mast.
And it went very fast. I think, I may be wrong, but I think, and looking back, I think we got caught aback. Some of the boys at the wheel brought her into the wind too fast, and the wind came. You know what I mean by being caught aback.
Yeah.
The wind comes from the other side of the sail. Let me put it that way to explain it, you know. Now, all the pull is in the rear of the sail, you know, all the stays and the shrouds and everything that support the mast, all to the rear of the sail, you know. There's not too much in the front. There's only the foremast. If you get caught aback, then it's no job to tear the masts out of her.
And so do you think she got caught aback and the main mast went completely?
Yeah.
The whole,
oh yeah.
Even
yeah,
the lower
whole
mast.
goddamn thing come down on top of them. Yeah.
Boy, was anyone hurt when that
No
came
one was
down?
hurt. No, I don't know why. No one was aloft either, which is remarkable.
And was the mast cleared over the side?
No, no, it was dragged on held all by all the wires and gadgets. You know, all the wires.
So
the
they saved the
the
mast?
shrouds.
Right.
Well, it wasn't good. It was split in two. It wasn't safe for much.
Oh.
We sailed into Manila without it. We did. We cut
Was
it
it still-
adrift and
Oh, you cut it adrift.
oh,
yeah.
cut it adrift and took the wire down and sailed in without it.
Uh-huh.
And re-rigged another one. We had the spares, you know, the spars.
Did you have
Always
a spare
got a
mast?
couple of spares. You
Spare
know.
mast?
Spare masts, spars they call them.
Uh-huh.
So we used them and re-rigged her down in what you call in Manila.
Manila. How long did it take to re-rig it?
Or maybe 3 or 4 days or something like
that's
that.
not
Yeah, it took
fast.
a while. Yeah, it took
Yeah,
a
that's
while.
pretty fast. And that was what did you do after you got to Manila?
Well, we stayed there 2 or 3 months again, loading cargo. The beauty of these things was that you had a lot of time ashore.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah.
on a sailing ship. It took a long time to load them and discharge them
Mhm.
because they have no equipment for doing that kind of work. And you also discharged out in the out in the harbour. You know, not at the dock.
Mhm.
See, so it took a long time, quite a while. We were there for about, well, let's see. I remember we were there Columbus Day. It took us 58 days to get there, which was almost a record passage. A whole steamer took about 35 days to get there.
Yeah, that is
So
fast.
the Moshulu took 89 days to get there.
Wow, on the same same time.
Yeah, about the same time. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
because she was in Manila with us.
Uh-huh.
And the Monongahela, they were all there. Because we used to play basketball with them. I didn't know one ball from another, you know, but the kids, all good American boys, all knew basketball, you know. So we had a league while we were there, you know.
And what was the name of your ship?
Well, the Arapaho.
And do you know its name before it was named?
I don't know, but where I got the idea, but I think a name previous to that was the Lord Templeton. No, the German name I don't remember. It was the Steinmitz or the Star. It was a Scharnhorst or so, a German name anyway.
Uh-huh.
But I think its original name was the Lord Templeton.
Mhm.
See, they weren't German ships; they were British ships, bought by the Germans. You know, when the British began unloading the sailing
see.
ships, the Germans bought them up.
I see.
When the Germans started to unload them, the Finns bought them up. You know,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and the Finns were the last to operate the ships as going concerns. You know, doing between the wars.
Now, was this your last voyage? The voyage?
But that was the last voyage.
San Francisco to Manila.
That was the last voyage.
Uh-huh.
That was the last. Oh no, I spent about a year in oil tankers, you know, doing after that.
And then after the end of the war,
That was the end. Yeah.
you
I spent a couple of years after that. I sailed till about 22.
Uh-huh.
3 or 4 years I spent after the war.
and then you came back to the States.
And then I paid off and went out to Canada and then came back to the States later, you know, and settled down.
Uh-huh.
Swallowed the hook, as they say.
Yeah. And
Met a nice little woman, you know, and she persuaded me to give it up. Not give it, I didn't need much coaxing.
uh,
Then I had responsibility, you see.
yeah.
Then no longer was I footloose and maybe this is what I needed all the time. Probably if I'd had that, I'd never went back to sea again in the first place. So. Now, I didn't think in those terms, if you know what I mean. I didn't. It wasn't a thought-out philosophy. But evidently, by the time I met Mrs. K, so I don't want you to mention names and anything like that.
Okay.
Do you mind?
No, that's fine.
No. Say, just for other reasons. Someday I'll tell you the other story, but some I'm holding back. But it wasn't a philosophy. It just happened, you know. But I must have been possibly right for it. Because off the record, this is not for,
No, fine.
you know, it's got nothing to do with seamanship. But we both had very much in common, you know what I mean? We were both orphans, if you know what I mean. We were both orphans. Neither of us had family. Neither of us had, we both had more or less the same experience, coming here as youngsters, with no friends, no nothing, you know. And both an outlook in life which was more or less common to each other, you know. We were both radical, so-called, what you call radical, for the day, you know, for the period. We were radicals, you know. And I don't mean as blown up buildings or anything. She was a feminist, so-called. It was that period after the First World War, where the sexual revolution had taken place, more or less, and women had become emancipated. See? So we had a lot in common, you know, we had a very lot in common. But basically, we're anti-disestablishment, anti-establishment, right? We're just 50 years ahead of the times.
Yeah.
Took 50 years to catch up with us.
Yep.
We both did this. We hitchhiked from California on the honeymoon.
Really? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, in 1922, when it was 23. When no one else was doing it, of course.
You hitchhiked back east?
Yeah, we hitchhiked from California to New York.
And then you settled in New York?
And then we settled in New York. We got pregnant on the way. And then we settled down as a family unit, you know. And we've been there ever since.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
So, with a little intelligence, a little loyalty, and call it what you want, respect, you can make a go of things, you know.
Yeah, that sounds good. That's quite a story. That's quite a story.
So here we are,
Yep.
Lahan.
Cheers. Oh, what are the stories you're holding back?
These are off the record.
Okay.
I'll tell you someday when I get to know you better.
Okay.
But they were also fun stories, but they had implications, you know, one thing or another.
Well, that's great.
All right.
Yeah, so
Wait a minute. Would you like to hear some shanties?
Sure.
Wait a
Can you
minute.
sing?
See if I
you
can.
sing them?
No, let's hear. Put them on the tape.
Okay. Do you want to sing?
Turn this off now?
Okay, I'll
You want a shanty on this?
Do you want to sing one?
Do you want one?
If you sung it, that'd be great. Can you sing it?
Let's have it. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Take it. What, is it on?
Yeah, that's on. Okay, anytime.
Oh, the anchors away and the sails they are set. Away, Rio. The friends we are leaving we'll never forget. And we're bound for the Rio Grande. Away, Rio. Heave away, Rio. Sing fairly well, my bonny young girl. And we're bound for the Rio Grande. Singing farewell to Sally and farewell to Sue. Away, Rio. And all who are listening, sing farewell to you. And we're bound for the Rio Grande. We've a stout standing ship and a jolly fine crew. Away, Rio. A big buckle mate and a good skipper too. And we're bound for the Rio Grande. Away, Rio. Heave away, Rio. Sing fare you well, my bonny young girl. And we're bound for the Rio Grande. So heave on the anchor and get under way. Away, Rio. But always remember, we'll come back someday, and we're bound for the Rio Grande. Away, Rio. Heave away, Rio. Sing farewell, my bonny young girl, and we're bound for the Rio Grande. That's a captain shanty, usually sung when they're heaving up the anchor.
That's great. Can you think of it? Do you want to sing another? That was terrific.
All right.
That was great. Do you want to sing another chanty?
Let's see. This is a halyard shanty, usually sung. It could easily be sang for anchor or hoisting up a yard. Oh, Sally Brown was a high-born lady. Away the roll and go, a little dark but not too shady. I'll spend my money on Sally Brown. Oh, Sally's hair is nice and curly. Away the roll and go. Sally's teeth are white and pearly. I spend my money on Sally Brown. For 7 long years I courted Sally. Away the roll and go. For 7 long years and she would not marry. And I spend my money on Sally Brown. So I married Sal, her only daughter. Away the roll and go, and for her I sail upon the water, and spend my money on Sally Brown. Now Sally Brown has a little lady. Away the roll and go. She's a little dark, but not too shady, and I spend my money on Sally Brown. This sea shanty is the last sea shanty sung by sailors at the end of a voyage. It's the kind of a shanty that gives the old salt an opportunity to tell the captain just exactly what he thinks about him. I thought I heard the captain say, "Leave her, Johnny, leave her. You can go ashore and get your pay. It's time for us to leave her. You can go ashore and pack your gear. Leave her, Johnny, leave her, and leave her tied to a South Street pier. It's time for us to leave her." The voyage was long and the work was hard. Leave her, Johnny, leave her, from the Liverpool dock to the Brooklyn yard. It's time for us to leave her. She shipped it green and made us curse. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. The old man was a devil and the mate was worse. It's time for us to leave her. Oh, leave her, may we never see. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. A hungry bitch the likes of she. It's time for us to leave her. The sails are furled, our work is done. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. We'll go ashore and have some fun. It's time for us to leave her.